Adam, thanks for joining.
Yeah. Hey, Jason. Thanks for having me on. Been looking forward to this discussion.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I would love to get started by just a little about your background, because one of the things I love doing with these types of podcasts and videos is to actually dive into the person. Before we get into some of the topics we're going to talk about with where the world is today, et cetera, et cetera. Did your parents raise you to be in HR? How did you get into this space?
Yeah, my parents raised me to be a lawyer. And so I've never done anything as it relates to the law. So I would say career-wise, I'll start with career and then I'll go to personal. I think career-wise, I've essentially had 3 careers. I was in the U.S. military. I was in the Marine Corps.
Okay.
I was a high school basketball coach and teacher, and then I've been in the corporate world for the last 25 years. Right now, I'm at GE HealthCare. I'm the Chief People Officer. I feel fortunate to be able to say I'm literally in my dream job, and every day I remind myself how lucky and fortunate that I am to be able to say that. I think on the personal side, so
I didn't even know about the basketball coach part.
Yeah. So I grew up in a huge basketball family. So my dad played college basketball. Me and my 4 brothers all played. My dad's second oldest brother played for the Harlem Globetrotters.
Wow.
My first high school basketball coach was Jeff Van Gundy, who ended up coaching him with the Knicks and the Rockets. And most of my mentors growing up were basketball coaches.
Okay.
And so when I had the opportunity to, sometimes people say if you can't do, then teach.
Yeah.
For me, it was like if you're not a really good player, then coach. So, I really struggled as a player, but I learned the game, and to have the opportunity. So I coached in Charlottesville, Virginia.
Okay.
Loved the opportunity to do that, and even after that, when I've had time, I've tried to give back time and volunteer at local high schools and stay connected to the game.
Do you still watch basketball? Like, do you watch that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Love the game. I'm a lifelong junkie on it. The game's changed
Bulls
a lot.
fan?
What's that?
Bulls fan?
So in the pros, so I'm a North Carolina Tar Heel basketball fan.
Okay.
So that for 10 plus years, that made me a Bulls fan when Michael Jordan was there. In the pros, I'm more of a player fan.
Okay.
There are certain players I gravitate to, and college will always be North Carolina.
Okay.
And then on the personal side, I often say that I really think of myself in terms of just 4 words: husband, father, Marine, coach. And that's really how I think about myself. Been married for 27 years. We've got 3 beautiful daughters. I was in the Marine Corps for 8 years and still around a lot of the guys I served with, and that's an important part of my life, and just sort of recognizing and honoring them. And then the coaching piece, not just in the basketball world, but in what I do in business.
Yeah.
I think the biggest value that I should provide on a daily basis is hopefully to be a really good coach to those who are around me, and vice versa. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, to say you have your dream job, like, not many people get to say that.
I mean,
so congratulations.
I've said that in my career. I've had sort of 3 dream job opportunities, and I've done 2 out of the 3. And the third I'm not going to do. The 2 out of the 3 was to be a Marine. Second is in my current job. The one I'm not going to do is I'm pretty sure I'm not going to end up being the head basketball coach at the University of North Carolina. But you never know. But I've kind of started to give up on that dream.
I thought you were going to say Globetrotter.
They didn't. Yeah. No, that would have been a dream, but the ball handling just isn't there anymore. And some would say never was. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. So your coaching combined with your being a dad, now watching how the world is resetting, I guess is the best way to say it. What kind of advice are you giving your kids around that? And then when you think about your teams, what kind of advice are you giving them when we think about the world of artificial intelligence, and is it bad? Is it good? Is it right? Is it wrong?
Yeah.
Et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, well, let me start with maybe advice for people. So I'll sort of say what I tell my kids, which is the same advice that I got growing up. Find the thing that you love. If you are doing things that you love, it doesn't feel like work. You won't regret decisions that you make. I like to say that if you make decisions in alignment with what is really important to you, you can't go wrong. The challenge is to be really honest with yourself on what is most important. I think a lot of us fall into the trap of saying the things that we want or the things that others we think we need to say, or maybe it's the norm, or it's the, I feel lucky. I've got 3 kids who peer pressure doesn't work. They lack the gene around peer pressure. And so for better or worse, like what they think
they'll do
is really important to them. And so I think that's important. And then to your point, we're in a very different world right now. When you think about around digital and AI, the world is changing in front of us, and it's interesting because there's a little bit of dichotomy. I would say right now nobody knows what they're doing in this. Right, we're seeing a lot of projections. We're seeing a lot of predictions. I think a lot of the predictions, the ones that hit the headlines, are the ones that scare people.
Yep.
I think in general, when I look at AI, in my work lifetime, this is the first time where I think that there is an exponential opportunity in terms of how we serve and support the people in our business, the customers and our patients. It's truly exponential. The rest of my career has been incremental.
Yeah.
And it's, in hindsight, it's easy to say that. If you would have said to me 10 years ago, so Adam, you're pretty much playing the incremental play, right? I would have said, no. We really were, right? And I think now, if we're willing to embrace it, if we're willing, again, to be real about what the opportunity is, I think it really gives us the opportunity to exponentially change, and not change for change's sake, but change to be better for our customers, our patients, and for our colleagues. But it is going to be a lot of change. And so one of the things when I talk to young people right now, I know a lot, I hear the stories, I talk to people as they're getting out of college, and things have changed a lot. And what used to be, I think, I have this degree, and now it's used to be easy to get into an entry-level job and then do this, and here's the pathway. That's been disrupted in a lot of different ways. And so, again, what I urge and encourage people to do, find what you love to do. I think there's a resilience to younger people today that didn't, one of my views on life is I think that all of us can't wait to get old enough to criticize the generation after us. And usually we say the very same things that our parents' generation said about us and pretend like it's new. But one of the things I definitely see about the generation coming up right now, and you look at having lived through the pandemic, a lot of the things that they had to sort of suffer through, is I think there's a real resilience to there. Not to say that our generation didn't have resilience, but in a different way, that I have not just hope, but incredible expectation that, it's going to be different, but that this next generation will rise to make the opportunity everything that it possibly can be.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you, Adam. And I think one of the things that scares me, well, I want to unpack a couple things you said. So first of all, I want to call out again that no one knows what you said about no one knows what they're doing. And I think personally that that's because we're used to increments instead of exponential. And most of us haven't had the opportunity to go through an exponential moment like that. Like we weren't around when the printing press all of a sudden came out, and client server to cloud from a tech standpoint, or, hey, we used to pick up the rotary phone. Now we're still communicating the same way, only on a cell phone. Like that is, you might say that's exponential, but for the most part, it's the same thing, just with a little better tech. And I really think that now this exponential layer that you're talking about, that's why people don't know what they're doing, because we've never done it.
And we've been trained around what I call sort of the IT paradigm. And that's why I don't like calling AI a technology. I think it's an exponential capability. The IT paradigm, if you think about it, our whole career, we have been trained around the rollout.
Yep.
So hopefully you've identified a business problem. Hopefully you've gotten the right technology to come in, but somebody else comes in, says, here's the technology you're going to use. Here's how it works. Here's what it's going to solve. Generally pretty narrow in use. You work towards the rollout. Success becomes a rollout, not an outcome, a rollout. Generally, throughout our career, let's be honest, how often has the technology worked the way that we hoped? When it doesn't work the way that you hope, you're sort of set with it for 3 to 5 years, whatever the length of the contract is. And as a user, you have zero ability to really influence change in it. Now we have a capability where all of that has been turned on its head. But we're still operating in this sort of, I think, IT paradigm, which I think hurts us tremendously.
Well, I think that, and I said this yesterday on a session I was doing, is that I actually think that we designed our function based on software. Instead of software being designed for our function. So someone was asking me, like, hey, we're trying to go from 10,000 job codes to 5,000 job codes. I said, well, why do you have job codes? They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, no, just ask yourself, why do you have job codes? And there may be really valid reasons. But they're like, well, our system won't let us hire someone without a job code. I'm like, that's not a good reason.
Exactly. We've set it up that way. Look, I think there's a decent analogy to what you're saying. I think anybody who's really done an ERP refresh well will understand that, I once at a former organization, we got halfway through an ERP and it hit us. We're getting ready to put in a whole different technology stack and we're going to do all the same processes. Why would we do that? Why in the world would we do that? So we changed a bunch of our processes. Again, at the time, if you would have been interviewing at the time, I would say we're exponentially changing the business. We weren't. We were incrementally, because part of it was we were locked. We were restricted in thinking based off of how we had experienced technology in the past. Instead of fundamentally thinking, how should we re-engineer this process? How should we recreate it and then build a stack around it? Without knowing it, we always do it the other way. Always.
But I want to go back, and I want to go back to that statement you made about younger people and their resilience, because I think it's really important to tie these two together. Because there are times, and I'll just speak for myself, I feel like I'm in their way. Like, I think I'm not letting them just run, and we're saying, well, you can't do that because we've always done it this way, or you can't think that way because we've always done it this way. And I'm just curious as to your outlook on if we actually want the exponential change, what we as leaders need to do to make that happen. A, and B, can we stay relevant? I mean, you and I have had this conversation before where I work really hard to try to stay relevant, even though I'm getting older, but every day someone much younger than me will say, well, why did you ever do it that way to begin with? Like over and over again. I'm like, yeah, you're right. And you actually need that diversity of thought, I think, to keep you grounded.
Here's the question, and you've sort of posed it in various different ways. Do we want the exponential change?
That's interesting. Do we want it?
Do we want it? To what degree do we want it? How does that threaten us? It's a very different world for
Made me swallow hard.
My team and I were talking a few weeks ago as we were sort of charting out our journey as we think about next steps in sort of our digital AR journey transformation. And one of the questions I posed to them, because we were talking about coaching, and I said, envision the world where a large language model is a better coach than you. And I'll make this about me, a better coach than me. Guess what? We're already living in that world, I believe. I don't think that world's in the future. I think that world is today. That's hard for me to say. Again, when I look at sort of top 10 things that I think that HR leaders should do to provide value to an organization, coaching to make client leaders better leaders is number one on the list. If something else is a better coach than me, what does that mean? Well, it means we should use it. And it means there are other things on the value chain that frees up time for me. But for me, I don't think it's one or the other. The idea of 53,000 colleagues at my current organization having 24/7 fundamental great coaching, and I believe, I may be wrong on this, I believe that when individuals use a large language model to serve as their coach, they actually trust it more than even the most trusting leaders they've worked with. Even I think about it, I've worked for some incredible role models throughout my career. And I think to myself, have I ever shared everything with them? No, we're human.
Yep.
You're not going to do that. So I think it really does threaten a future that we all think about. And so, one of the things that we are working hard at where I'm at right now is how do we create a lab mentality? Like the idea of, again, yesteryear, we'd feel really good about ourselves if we ran 3 or 4 pilots before we did the rollout.
Yep.
And now it's got to be, what are the 1,000 experiments? Where is the lab? How are we experimenting with things? Maybe 20 of the ideas become scaled up, ready for prime time.
So we're not even calling them pilots here. These are experiments.
Experiments, right?
Yeah.
Things that might take a day, might take a week, but that is where we are really succeeding in my current organization. We see the light bulbs coming on for people around what they have in front of them and the importance of experimenting. What did we learn from it? Then thinking about sort of the application. And it goes to, one of the things I appreciate a lot about you is the insistence on mindset, right? You
probably a little too much sometimes.
You wrote an article about first principles thinking that honestly, anybody who's thinking about digital AI transformation should start with that. Because if you don't understand, believe, and can think about how you put in action every word from that article, I'm not sure where you're going to go with this. And I think a lot of organizations, and I think this is what you're probably experiencing, are running right past that.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to learn from other organizations that don't know what they're doing and then say, we're going to copy you. We're going to copy you. The best practices is generally a bad way to think about things. It's a horrible way as we think about nobody knows what they're doing.
Right. Yeah, no, thank you for the compliment on that piece, because that's to get to the root of some of those things, you watch people and you will present a new technology or you'll present a new idea or talk about an experiment, and all of a sudden they'll say, well, yeah, but we're still going to do it the same way. Like, we can't change. Yeah. I'm like, then we're wasting. Then you shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Like, just keep doing what you're doing today and make sure the company is as successful as possible. Your company will probably go out of business.
Yeah.
But at least for the period of time, don't waste your time. Like, dive in and start with nothing. Like, why are we doing this?
Yeah.
Why are we thinking this way? Why have I been doing performance management this way? Why am I still doing once-a-year salary surveys? Why am I still doing once-a-year engagement surveys? Vendors hate when I say all this, by the way, because they make a lot of money doing it. Yeah. But it's not relevant anymore.
Yeah.
It's once a year is not relevant anymore for the most part.
And by the way, think about the cottage industries that have been built over the last decades to protect the status quo.
Yep.
So we're going to get lots of people who are going to attack what you just said. I'm sure it's happening right now.
Yeah.
This idea you put in the article, and we fight against this every day. The idea of be careful not to confuse speed with strategy, right? We used to say don't automate bad processes and just make them faster, and now we got to go a step up and say those bad processes, understand how tied they were just to the technology. Sort of possibilities at the time, and question fundamentally, you do a good job of this, what's the need? Why? What really are the valued outcomes we're trying to drive?
Right.
Because there's much different, better ways to do it. And if we don't start from that perspective, we're going to bring in a bunch of technology that after several months, and then you know what we're going to be left with? AI doesn't work.
Right, exactly. Or you've started to see the studies. 95% of AI projects fail.
Yeah, which is an interesting, the MIT study. Yes. By the way, I think there's a lot we can learn from that. There's also, when you look at fundamentally how many data points were in there and what they were testing and stuff like that, the headline lives.
Yep.
But it's just really interesting as we think about sort of what are the opportunities and where we're at, and really questioning everything as we start this.
So I want to tie this back to the coaching. The coaching thing is really interesting to me. The basketball coaching, but also the coaching, using models. So there's a lot of HR leaders or leaders in general who are struggling with how to influence, I'll say not change, influence their teams.
Yeah.
I thought it was really interesting what you just said about speed and strategy. Yeah. So when all of a sudden the game changes, when basketball changes, or you're facing a different opponent, what do? You have to adapt, and you change your strategy.
Yeah.
Or you've got 3 people that graduate, all of a sudden you're not the tallest team anymore, but you're a fast three-point shooting team.
Yeah.
So what kind of advice do you give your teams when it comes to that ties that coaching into what to do so that we don't end up with stasis of like, okay, well, we can't change. We'll just lose.
Look, I think there's 3 things. In the coaching analogy is a really good one. There's 3 things. If I think about sort of my time in coaching that I'll pull on. I think one, when I was much younger, one of the things that was really important to me, because I remember back to when, as a freshman in high school, I alluded to, Jeff Van Gundy was our high school coach. He had just graduated from college the year before, Nazareth College up in Rochester, New York. And he would practice with us, right? And this guy's out in open gym in the summer, diving for loose balls.
I can't see the Jeff Van Gundy in the short shorts out diving for the loose ball.
Jeff was it's interesting. He was a Division III All-American.
Okay.
I mean, he was a really, really solid basketball player. Not much he wasn't really athletic.
Right,
He didn't have, but he was a smart player, played really hard. But it's one thing to say to your team, here's the importance of playing hard. It's another thing when you can show them. And so for me as a young coach, it was really important for me to get out on the court and show people.
And he bleeds passion, right, also?
100%.
Okay.
Yes. And so, it's, again, for those who don't know basketball, open gym is not official games. You're just training in the off season. The idea of out on the floor diving for loose balls in games that are meaningless, for him, it was like win every play. It's a mentality. It's a mindset. And again, the idea of as a coach of being able to show. The other thing is, and I'll use the basketball coaching analogy. I used to think I was a great coach when I was coaching boys varsity basketball. And it took me to when I was coaching my daughter 2nd grade girls YMCA basketball to realize that I wasn't a good coach.
Wow.
Because with the girls, by the way, when you think about difference between girls and boys, in sports, girls listen. Like I would pick to be a coach of girls 100 out of 100 times. It's just a much more fulfilling experience. But I coached a group of girls from 2nd grade to 8th grade. And what you realized as a coach was the power of asking questions, not telling them what to do, and unlocking what they knew or could help them build off of it to become their idea. And I think in the world that we're talking about right now, I think that's important all the time. But think about a large language model. I fall into the category. I remember a few years ago waking up, seeing the articles of ChatGPT 3.5 coming out and realizing I didn't really even know what ChatGPT was. And thinking to myself, this is bad. And so my team, we said, we're gonna invest in going all in for the next month of understanding everything we can about AI and what we think that means for us. after that month, I came back with some very different conclusions than I thought going into that month.
What was the bad? Do you mind if I ask when you said, I think this is bad, when you said ChatGPT?
It was bad that I did not, like, it had been sort of in the background. I've been hearing some things, and it was released.
So it was bad you didn't know.
I could not have explained to you that day at all what it was.
Okay.
I think I would have just said it's a faster Google.
Right, okay.
And that was a bad thing.
Feeling,
I was like, how do I not know that? And I remember the first month with ChatGPT, when one of, I think, the more important light bulbs for me was the idea of when I get a wrong answer, there was a much better chance it was because I asked the wrong question, not because of the technology.
Yeah.
And now that is my assumption every time I interact with Copilot or Llama or ChatGPT. If I don't get an answer that solves our problem, my assumption is I did not ask the right question. It's not about, and what I worry, and I see this with, I see this in my kids at times, I see this in others. I worry that when we don't get exactly what we want out of it the first couple of times, the assumptions that we make, the conclusions that we make around AI and large language models.
We abandon?
We immediately abandon, and then it goes to those articles of it doesn't work and all of that sort of stuff. That's not about ChatGPT or Copilot or large language models or AI. That's about us. That's really about a mindset piece. And then I think the third piece, going back to your question about the team, I think it's really important to be able to show your team possibilities, because again, I don't think we realize, I brought it up a number of times, but I don't think we realize just how restricted we are from yesteryear's paradigms. So we have to show what is possible to get different thinking.
Yeah, no, those are amazing. And I think that the thing that I take away from that is that I love the getting dirty. I mean, it's not what you said, but it's the way I heard it. It's the getting dirty. Like, for whatever reason, Van Gundy's in my head, getting dirty, playing basketball. Yeah. Like, there's a lot of, I hope I don't get in trouble saying this, there's a lot of your peers who aren't getting dirty with this. Like, you just mentioned Llama. I've never heard a CHRO mention Llama in my life. And I bet if I asked most CHROs what Llama was, they probably wouldn't be talking about anything related to AI.
Yeah.
They'd be talking about something else.
Yeah.
All of that being said, like, they've given this to IT.
Yeah.
They've given the AI responsibility to IT. And earlier you said, I don't think AI is as much a technology as it is a mindset or
it's a capability.
So to your fellow CHROs or fellow leaders, like, is it get dirty? Is it experiment? Is it fool around and find out? Like, what? How do they? Because the first time I met you, I was like, "Holy cow! This is like one of the top 10 CHROs I've ever met who actually gets this."
Yeah.
But how did you get it?
It's a good question, because I felt, I go back to that day. It was a seminal day in sort of my life where the articles all came out. There was a bunch of things on the news, and my first reaction initially was, I don't know what this is. And then that scared me, and it didn't make me feel good. And I said, I don't know what it was about that to say, we are going to go all in and really sort of understand what it was. But Ethan Malik I know you know Ethan. He talks about in his book, everybody when it comes to large language models and AIs needs to go through 3 sleepless nights, where you're using the technology, where it really hits you. This is a different capability. It's a different paradigm. And for me, in that first month, at the time I was at a previous employer, I took my leadership team. I said, I want to put together a small team across our function. I want to experiment over the course of the next 4 weeks to 6 weeks. And I want to come back at the end and say, what did we learn about this? I sort of highlighted earlier, I came up with very different conclusions. Here's what I thought I was going to go into it with. I thought I was going to go into it with, we're going to identify what are the 3 big use cases in HR. We're going to figure out who are the best vendors to come in and use it. What I came out of that month with was an understanding that large language models are going to fundamentally change the game, general use capability, and that it wasn't about the individual app that was going to come in, but it really is about the mindset and how do we think about it and how do we use it and how do we think differently about what this allows us to do. It was a very, very, very different sort of conclusion than I thought I was going to go into it. So as we were doing that, I don't know if that was a perfect storm of a lot of information was coming out about it, but it hit me. My whole career, we've been telling our function, we are right around the corner from being able to take all the things off your plate and we've been lying my whole career. Not willingly, but we have been.
As a vendor, as a former vendor, I feel the exact same way.
We've been lying our whole career. And now we have the ability. I really believe this. And it's interesting. I told my team, I told you, I'm in my dream job. I've worked my whole career. Not that at the beginning of my career, I said, I'm one day going to have the good fortune to be the CHRO, Chief People Officer of GE HealthCare. But yet here I am. This is my dream job. God willing, this will be my last job. I have no incentive to this isn't about me. There's nothing else I want to do in my career but do my very best for the patients, customers, and colleagues of GE HealthCare. The safe bet would be to incrementalize. Because that's what everybody's going to do, right? We're going all in around a capability shift, and there's risk in that. I get that. But when I think about what GE HealthCare means to me, what our mission means, our purpose, we have a purpose. We want to create a world where healthcare has no limits. Those are not words to us. Those are promises. And for us to do that, we can't do it the way we've always done. We have an incredible foundation where we stand. The legacy is strong. But when we think about the challenges that our people face, the challenges that our patients and our customers face, incremental thinking is not going to get us where we need to go. So yes, there is risk in what we are doing, but the reward and the reason why is so strong, it becomes really simple as it relates to that.
Yeah, no, I can't add. That was a beautiful ending. I have nothing else to say to that other than, the fact that you have a dream job, A. B, the fact that you're focused on that exponential instead of incremental, and C, that you're taking risks that are going to benefit. And I want to call this out. When you called out who your stakeholders were, you said patients first.
Yeah.
And that's beautiful. I, myself, as a patient of your products, the fact that you called that out first as a CHRO just means a lot. It means a lot to me. It means a lot to, I hope, everyone listening to this, that that it ties back to the mission.
Yeah, I hope so too. And look, I feel incredibly fortunate to work with 53,000 people who feel exactly the same. Yeah. And that's why when people ask me what makes it your dream job,
that's great. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me on today, Jason. Really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.